Hey, shalom, welcome back. Here we are with another lesson of Listen and Learn directed Hebrew immersion with visual cues. We are continuing in our work through the book of Exodus, chapter 30, and today we will start with verse 27 and just see how we go. I've got a handful of verses ready, and we'll just see what comes up and how the lesson goes. אבינו מלכנו כן יהי רצון כי אנחנו נחיה תלמידים טוב בעיניך. תשלח נא אבא את ברכות שמיים עלינו, כי אנחנו רוצים ללמוד טוב, אנחנו רוצים לראות את פניך. לעולנו ולך יהיה כל הכבוד. Okay, here we are. Let's see. All right, I will go ahead and scan the verse first. ואת השולחן, ואת כל keilaiv, ואת המנורה ואת keileha, ואת mizbach haketoret. Okay, so we have ve'et, and then we have the aleph tav, that's the definite direct object marker. Hashulchan, hashulchan. So the hash, that's the, shulchan is table, right? It's talking about the holy table where the lechem hapanim would be placed, the bread of the presence, right? The 12 loaves. So, and the table, ve'et, and da-da-da. I know, and one of you mentioned he's not so fond of the da-da-da. I'm trying to think of a better way to make the sound for the construct. If anybody has any ideas, maybe I'll go duh. Maybe like that's not as bad. Duh, or just duh. Kol keilaiv. So kol kaf lamed, all of keilaiv. This means its instruments. So the keilaiv, the vav at the end means his or its, and the keilai, this is construct plural from keili, which is a very versatile word. This word means things like, it kind of means stuff, right? Like if you had to memorize it as one thing, I think the one definition that I would learn it as is just stuff. It can be an instrument, like something that helps you to achieve something, right? Or it could be a weapon, right? Kalei milchama. Or it could be like, if it's kalei nashim, it's the things that women use to adorn and beautify themselves. So you can see it's a very versatile word. Now, why is the table mentioned first? Well, Inb Ezra comments that the table is mentioned first because it happens to be the largest object in the sanctuary. And it had many utensils, right? Because then it goes on to mention menorah, etc., all that kind of stuff. So I found that interesting because I hadn't known that the table was the largest. I had always kind of assumed the menorah was the largest. Okay, how you guys doing? Are you with me? You awake? We're all doing all right today. All right, let's continue. So ve'et hashulchan, and the table, ve'et kol keilaiv, and all of its stuff. That its instruments, its vessels, its thingies, refers back to hashulchan, the table. Okay, continuing. Ve'et, and hamnorah. Ham, the menorah. Well, gee, that one's an easy word. What could menorah possibly mean? Well, it's a menorah. Sometimes translated as candelabra, right? It's the menorah. Okay, continuing on. Ve'et, and keileha. So we have the same word, keilaiv, up above, and now keileha. Why is it a ha? Well, because this one's feminine, because menorah ends in an ah, so it's feminine. So we use the ha. All of her items, utensils, etc. ve'et, pardon me, ve'et, and the mizbach haketoret. The construct form of mizbeach. Mizbeach is altar. Mizbach is the altar. And I thought I marked this. It's kind of hard the way I have it highlighted there to notice, but we do have a definite article. Ha, the ketoret, the incense, the smoky stuff. So the altar of incense, or the altar of thick smoke, or thick perfumed smoke. All right, let's go through it again. And this time you try to translate before I do. All right? So again, this is Exodus chapter 30, verse 27. Ve'et hashulchan. And hash, the shulchan, table. Ve'et, and dat kol keilaiv, all of its vessels or instruments or thingy boppers, thingamajigs. Ve'et ham menorah, and ham, the menorah, the candelabra. Ve'et, and keileha, and the instruments or the vessels, the utensils of her, meaning the menorah. Ve'et, and the mizbach haketoret, the mizbeach, because it's a construct chain, the altar of the ketoret, incense or incense smoke or thick smoke. All right, I'll just read one more time at a kind of a normal pace. Do your best to understand. ואת hashulchan ואת כל keilaiv, ואת hamnorah ואת keileha, ואת mizbach haketoret. All right, next verse in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're now in Exodus chapter 30, verse 28. Let's scan the verse first. ואת מזבח העולה, ואת כל keilaiv. Sorry, my throat acted up right there. ואת הכיור, ואת כנו. All right. ואת, and, we don't translate et, the mizbach. So that is a construct from mizbeach again. So altar of ha la, the la, the la. Ayin lamed hey is a whole burnt offering, so called whole burnt because the verb la means to go up, to go up. So you send it all up. You don't eat any of it. You burn it all up as much as possible. That is the whole charred offering, the whole burnt offering. Ha, la. So that is a construct chain. And remember, whenever we have a construct chain, if the last word in the chain is definite, it makes all the words in the chain definite. So we will try to translate the, if it sounds right in English, or whatever your language is. Et ha mizbach ha la. So and the and the altar of the olah, the whole burnt offering. Or you could just say the olah offering, the olah offering. Continue on. The et and the kol keilaiv. Now here it won't make sense to say the all. We just don't say that in many languages. So we can just say all of his utensils or instruments or tools or stuff. So because mizbeach being masculine, that's why it's his. But we'll just say its. Literally his, though. All right, so far we have ve'et da mizbach ha'olah, and the altar of the olah, ve'et, and da kol keilaiv, and all of his utensils, or all of its utensils, all of its stuff. Ve'et hak kiyol. So, and hak, the kiyol. If you're just listening, it's spelled kaf, yod, resh. Kiyol, kiyol. This was the laver, right? The place for washing, like a wash basin. Continuing, ve'et, and kan no, and kan no in the American. Sorry, it's a joke for the Tagalog speakers. Kano means an American, though used generically for any kind of foreigner. So, kan, that's from cane, meaning pedestal, of it and its pedestal. Meaning, now what's the it or his? Why is it his? Why is it his pedestal? Because it's referring back to hak kiyol, which is masculine. So real quickly, on the previous verse, you'll notice. So we had kol keilaiv, all of it, his utensils. His, because that was referring back to hashulchan, which was masculine, the table. And later we had at keileha, her utensils, and that was her, because it was referring back to menorah. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to draw. I was trying to make the laser pointer there. The menorah, which is feminine. Now in verse 28, we've got ve'et kol keilaiv, and all of his utensils, because the his is referring back to the mizbach ha'olah, the altar of the olah, of the whole burnt offering. And then finally, ve'et hak kiyol, and the laver, or like the wash basin, ve'et, and kano, and his pedestal, because his is pointing back to hak kiyol, which is masculine. Okay. Of course, we won't say his or hers in English, but in other languages we might say that. Как на русском, например. All right. Any comments or questions? How you guys doing? Let's just go through. Let's read through these. Oh, I haven't read 28. Let's read 28 at just. Let's read it again. This time you try to translate before I do, and then I'll read through it one more time, and we'll be done with this lesson. Ve'et ta mizbach ha'olah. Ve'et, and ta mizbach ha'olah. The mizbeach is what that says. The altar of the whole burnt offering. Ve'et ta kol keilaiv. All of his stuff, his utensils, vessels, etc. Ve'et, and hak kiyol, and the kiyol, kaf yod resh, the laver. Ve'et, and kano, and his cane, his pedestal, referring back to hak kiyol. All right, I'm just going to read it one time through at a normal pace, and you do your best to follow along. ואת מזבח העולה, ואת כל כליו, ואת הכיור, ואת קנו. Okay, how'd you guys do? So we're done with this lesson. Get ready for the next one. See you over there. Shalom, shalom.